Imagine a substance so powerful that it could withstand the heat of a nuclear blast. Yet so simple that it was allegedly cooked up in a kitchen by a hairdresser from northern England. This is the story of Starlite, the material that should have changed the world, but instead became one of the greatest mysteries in the history of science. The story begins in the 1980s with a man named Maurice Ward. Maurice was not a trained chemist or a materials scientist. He was a hair specialist and a former plastics manufacturer who wanted to create something that could protect people from fire. His motivation was personal and tragic, sparked by a plane crash in 1985 where 54 people died from toxic fumes and heat. Maurice believed he could find a way to stop that from happening again. He spent years experimenting with different formulations, mixing materials in his own workshop. Eventually, he found it. He created a multi-layered plastic-like substance that he named Starlite. It looked like nothing special, just a gray, doughy material, but its properties were unlike anything the world had ever seen. In 1990, the BBC television show Tomorrow's World gave Maurice a platform to prove his claims on live television. A raw egg was coated in a thin layer of Starlite. A high-powered blowtorch was then pointed directly at the egg for several minutes. The flame was so hot it would usually burn through steel. Yet the egg remained perfectly cool. When the Starlite was peeled away, the egg was still raw. It had not even begun to cook. The scientific community was stunned. Soon, the British Ministry of Defence and NASA were knocking on Maurice's door. During testing at the Atomic Weapons Establishment, Starlite was subjected to light pulses equivalent to 75 Hiroshima bombs. The result? It survived. Not only did it survive, but the material underneath remained largely unaffected. Scientists noted that while the surface of the Starlite would char and create a protective foam, it was incredibly efficient at dissipating heat. It seemed like the discovery of the century. Starlite could have been used to fireproof skyscrapers, line the hulls of space shuttles, or create indestructible protective gear for firefighters. It could have saved thousands of lives. But there was one major problem. Maurice Ward. Maurice was a man who lived by his own rules. He was fiercely protective of his invention and deeply suspicious of large corporations. He refused to patent the material because doing so would require him to reveal the secret formula. Instead, he kept the recipe inside his head and refused to sign any deal where he did not maintain at least 51% ownership of the intellectual property. Negotiations with massive aerospace companies and government agencies repeatedly fell through. Maurice wanted millions of pounds up front just for a look at the formula. And he famously walked away from a potential multi-million-dollar deal with Boeing because he felt they were trying to cut him out. To Maurice, Starlite was his legacy, and he was not going to let anyone take it from him. For 20 years, the mystery grew. Skeptics wondered if it was all a hoax. But the high-level government tests and the televised demonstrations were hard to ignore. Many experts who worked with the material confirmed it was legitimate and far surpassed any other thermal barrier in existence at the time. Then, in May 2011, Maurice Ward passed away. The world waited to see if the secret had been left to his family or hidden in a safe somewhere. But as the months turned into years, no announcement came. It appeared that Maurice had done exactly what he threatened to do. He had taken the secret of Starlite to his grave. Since his death, there have been many attempts to recreate the material. Scientists have tried to reverse engineer the charred remains of samples used in the 90s. But the exact chemical interaction that allowed Starlite to perform its miracles remains elusive. Some believe it was a complex arrangement of 20 different organic polymers and ceramics, while others think the secret lay in the specific way the materials were folded or mixed. A company called ThermoShield recently claimed to have formulated a product based on Maurice's work, after collaborating with his family. But the original, legendary version of Starlite remains a ghost in the annals of science. We are left to wonder how different the last 30 years might have been if Maurice Ward had been a more trusting man. Would the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster have been prevented? Would thousands of house fires have been extinguished before they could spread? We will never know for sure. Starlite stands as a haunting reminder that sometimes the greatest technological leaps are not held back by a lack of genius, but by the very human traits of pride, fear, and secrecy. One of the most important inventions of the 20th century was lost, not because it did not work, but because its creator loved his secret more than he loved the idea of sharing it with the world. Thanks for watching.